This next step involves turning the whole thing inside out through the hole that we made, which should be secure. If you pull this and it comes undone, take it back to your sewing machine and put some back stitches in there to prevent it from coming undone. This always seems a little tricky, but you just start by working the edges through and the corners, and you're gonna notice the elastic's gonna come out. That's exactly what we want. We're gonna keep going and pushing it through, and then you'll get to the other side that has elastic. Check it out. You can use that elastic to pull your corners out. Very nice. Now you might think that this would be a good time to go iron it. We're not gonna iron these face masks. This elastic will melt if you get it hot. So do not take it to an ironing board and iron that. Just make sure you pull your corners out real good. And then this last step involves putting in pleats and then sewing it on one final loop around, which is pretty cool. So what we're going to do, we're going to take it, it doesn't really matter what the top or the bottom is. The perfectionist in me really wants to iron this. It's really hard to like not go iron. Press it out real flat with your hands. There we go. Okay, so we're gonna do the first pleat, and this is one of these things where it just has to look right to you. And I always hold it with two hands, put the pin in, make sure you go through all the layers, and make sure you don't stab your hand. When you're doing these pleats, there's a couple things to look for. You want to have your edges stay lined up as closely as you can. You want to try to make them be pretty uniform in size, like, you know, you can see the distance there. You don't want to fold this one like up high. You want to make sure that, you know, it looks like nice pleats. There are many times that I do one of these and then at the end I'm not happy with where my pleats are, so before I sew it I take them out and then I re-pleat. And the last one. And then it's time to give it a little bit of self-analysis. You know, what do you think? Does it look nice and straight? Does it look like something that's going to be worn nicely? I think it does. If at this point, flip it over and look at it from the other side, because you need to make sure that when you're sewing, you don't trap any of the pleats on the bottom. I think it looks great. We're going to go ahead and zip around it one more time. Staying really at that 1/4 of an inch on the sides, and I always try to sew the bottom pretty close to the edge. For beginners, you could do a 1/4 of an inch. I always start on a side here, foot down, needle in, and we're just gonna sew right to the pins. And at this stage, I want you to sew over the pins, because if you take the pins out, the pleats will come undone. And so you're going to very slowly sew over top of the pins. So start sewing, do your back stitch. Sometimes you might have to pull the elastic a little bit to get the machine to start pulling it through. There's a lot of layers of fabric there. You'll notice if it hits a pin, the machine will make a weird noise. As long as you don't rush it and just let the machine do the work, it usually does a good job. Okay, we're gonna do a pivot here. I'm gonna try to sew pretty close to the edge on the bottom. I'm gonna lift, turn, foot's down. If I need to pull on that elastic, the elastic is there. And now I'm gonna sew across. Now this part should sew really easy. There's no pins there. So if you want to kick it up and go a little faster, you sure can. If you're gonna hit your pin, you might have to stop and readjust it. 1/4 of an inch is what I'm looking for. Lift the foot, spin it around, make sure everything is nice and flat. Foot goes down. Now I'm noticing my pleats there are a little mangled for some reason. Right there. So I might quickly, with the foot down, try to adjust that and re-put the pin in. I don't know what happened there. Somehow it got a little goofy. There, that looks better to me. Foot's down. I got my elastic to pull on if I need to, gently to start. Oh, check your speed. Yeah, pull gently to get it started. The machine really struggles to go over that many layers. One of the disadvantages of making a pleated mask. A little bit thicker. Right there on the edge, really, there's like 4 layers of fabric. All right, I'll turn it, and it's home free. You can open her up a bit. Now I do want to cross my original stitches and do a back stitch. Needle out, foot up, slide it out. Pull out my pins, put them in the pin cushion. And then we'll trim it carefully. Once again, this is not the place where you want to cut something because it's done. Do any last minute trimming. Make sure it's perfect or as perfect as can be. Spot any problems. You know, it's good to just kind of walk your way around the whole face mask and look for any problems. To me, it looks great. I'm going to go ahead and try it on and we'll see how it fits. Yeah, there we go. It's done. It's a little bit big for my face. Perfect sizing from nose to chin, but a little too big around the edge. So if that happens to you, let me know and I'll get you some tighteners so that we can tighten up that elastic just a bit, okay? In that instance, instead of 8 inches of elastic, maybe I should have done 7 because that might have fit me a little bit better, okay? That concludes the tutorial.